and he gambled away everything he owned by 2024. The technology industry has largely been about extractive capitalism and addiction on our phones.
We have a clip here from Tucker Carlson's podcast. This is going to be Saagar Enjeti from Breaking Points, and he is talking about sports gambling and online sports gambling, specifically the easy access to it, the potential for abuse, and the problems that it's causing with young men. I'm very curious to know, what do you guys think of the state of this situation? Let me know in the comments. Drop a like on the video, subscribe for more, and stay a part of the conversation.
In Valley, the vast majority of that money, as Peter Thiel famously said, we're promised flying cars, all we got were 140 characters. There is something deeply true about that, about the experience of the technology industry has largely been about extractive capitalism and addiction on our phones, and about industries that rely on that, as opposed to products that make our lives better and make.
Boy, they lecture you about that. I have friends in
this will ignite
in the tech business who I really like, who I consider so smart and interesting. And I guess we all get preachy about what we're doing with our lives. I mean, I get preachy about journalists. We're here to tell the truth. So I'm trying not to be too judgmental. On the other hand, I don't see technology over the past 80 years. What about antibiotics and the polio vaccine? Okay, great. But in general, net, as we say in the douchebag industry, I don't see it as a net plus at all. I see it as enslavement and a total disaster. But they're like, what? Technology's making our lives better. Really? Tell me how.
Yeah. I mean, let's take, I know you want to talk about sports gambling. It's the perfect example, right? So it's something that's been enabled by the phone and has led, in my opinion, to what is the next opioid epidemic that we will see in the next 10 years. So in 2018, literally just 2018, the Supreme Court ruled a decision that restricted sports gambling to the state of Nevada. New Jersey immediately, Chris Christie, by the way, is the person who brought this lawsuit, which legalizes sports gambling. Eventually,
Christie's on the side of sports gambling.
Of course, he was the person who brought the suit. Well, what happens from that point forward?
He is the lowest ever.
Well, you and I are sitting here today in a country where 40 states plus the District of Columbia, sports gambling is legal. You have these sports gambling companies, FanDuel and DraftKings, which basically have legal monopolies from the states, from the gaming commissions of these states, where they are allowed to operate, and it's not a free market because of the licensure and the way that it works. Yes. Not everybody can just become a gambler.
I want to talk about this, I should say, because I'm totally ignorant on the subject, but I keep hearing from young people who I'm related to or who work for me about people getting in trouble with sports gambling.
Yes. And so how did this all happen? So in the span of, it's been 7 years since that happened. 40 states are now legal. I just looked it up this morning. Several $100 billion were gambled by Americans in 2024.
$100 billion?
$100 billion were gambled in 2024. The gambling revenue was some $14 billion, just the revenue they were able to extract. That is larger than the motion picture industry, the box office industry in the United States of America. The vast majority of that revenue, a study that came out shows, comes from only 3% of gamblers, 3%. And the reason why is that gambling addicts make up almost 50% of the revenue. 3% make up 50% because they literally cannot put it down. And what makes this story even crazier is that FanDuel, DraftKings have the legal right in the way that they run their business, where, Tucker, if you and I were actually good at sports gambling, they would effectively ban us from the platform. They would no longer allow us to place bets larger than, let's say, $1.20. And the reason why is their algorithms are detectable for anybody who is actually gambling smart. And so they immediately will ban you from being able to bet any sizable portion of money. Meanwhile, for those gambling addicts, those 3%, they have an entire VIP host directed service where DraftKings and FanDuel shower these people in free gifts. They call them every single day. They basically operate on the phone to make sure that there's no track record, because they're not supposed to do this. They're not supposed to enable gambling addicts according to the law. And what they do is they encourage them with free promotions or whatever to keep gambling their entire life savings. More recently, there was a man, I talked about it in my monologue on the subject, who gambled away over $1 million, I think $1.4 million. He never made more than $200,000. His wife is suing DraftKings because he gambled away his children's life savings, college accounts, his Christmas gifts, everything that he owned. He'd never gambled before 2020, and he gambled away everything he owned by 2024. DraftKings used to call him every single day. They used to say, what else you got? They violated their own policies according to the lawsuit. According to their lawsuit, the lawsuit brought by the wife, the income, if they tried to verify it, they would have seen that he was using all of these different assets, which are, obviously not from a W-2 income, which is apparently violated of their policy. They would have seen, as they admit in many cases, he was a gambler gambling addict, and they didn't care. They allowed him to basically gamble away his life savings, and not only enabled it, but encouraged it. So,
you know what I'm thinking as you're telling me this amazing story? What I'm really afraid of is Sharia law. They hate us for our freedoms, Saagar. They hate us for our freedoms. Sharia's the threat.
Maybe they had something going on gambling. But my point,
this is so dark.
This is all on your phone. This is on my phone. This is on everybody's phone. It's on almost every young man's phone in America. It's part of the social fabric right now of male culture in the United States. And all of it. And I didn't even get to the craziest part, which is that the bets that they're making are these things called single game parlay bets, which are basically multi-contingent bets about 4 or 5 different things happening because the odds payout is much higher. You will lose with such regularity. Like in the state of Illinois, 60% of all bets were that type of bet.
Can you give me an example? My ignorance is astounding on the subject. So
I'm not very well versed in sports, but let's say we're watching a football game. We would say that this person is going to rush more than 200 yards. The quarterback will score 2 touchdowns, and at the end of the second half, the Packers will be up by 7. So you would bet that, and so your payout on a $5 bet could be $1,000, and that's why it's very attractive. But what people don't understand is that it's priced that way, that $5 for $1,000, because you're almost certainly not going to hit it. And
the parlay, just so that we're completely clear, it's stringing together a series of bets, right? Like Saagar was saying, you have like 3 or 4 independent outcomes. So it's like who's going to be the winner of the game, how many touchdowns is someone going to rush for, and how many yards are they going to pass for. The problem is if any one of those things doesn't happen, you lose the whole bet. And what's extra scammy about this that I've learned is that the odds on that, on like, let's say a 3-leg parlay, might be like 1,000 to 1. Let's just make it up. Like literally it might be 1,000 to 1. However, the book is actually going to pay you, if it happens to hit, they're going to pay you on worse odds than the 1,000 to 1. They'll pay you as if it was only like, I don't know, like a 500 to 1 bet. So you're taking the risk of a 1,000 to 1 bet, but you're only getting the payout, if my math is correct, on like half of that. It's a little bit exaggerated, but you get the point. And obviously, if you lose all of the money. So the more legs you add to your parlay, the worse the odds get for you. So it's very sinister, actually.
And that's the vast, vast majority of the bets that Americans are making today because it's fun. But my point around the fun is that the gambling addicts are the only people who enable your fun. And if you're actually any good at this, you'll get banned. It's a totally unfair marketplace.
How can they? Well, that's totally. And Vegas is the same way.
Vegas is the same way of how they back off people who are good at card counting. That's where the custom, what was legacy granted into the sports gambling houses, comes from. Regulators don't care about any of this, and legislators. Why? Because they're getting filthy rich revenues off of this from the state. But my contention is if you look at the social cost of every single state where sports gambling has been legalized, we've seen an increase in bankruptcy, particularly young men. We've seen a rise in domestic violence, intimate partner violence, largely when bets lose. So a man's bet will lose and he'll take it out on his wife or the kids that are in the house. It's horrible. We've seen a actually statistically significant rise, almost directly as a result of sports gambling. We are watching the social costs of our brother, our cousin, or whatever go bankrupt or lose hundreds of dollars, get normalized into this environment of taking like insane risks, which you don't even really understand. It's getting enmeshed. If you go to any bar in America during a sports game, you'll find somebody there with their phone. And if you're talking to them, they've got money on every play of the game. They'll be like, oh, I had $20 that he would, throw a touchdown in the very first quarter. Soon they're rolling out products which make it so that you can bet like every single play of the game. And they're doing it live. So
which you can already do in many ways on a lot of these apps. You can literally bet every single outcome of every single play. It's already here.
You can do it there all on your phone. I mean, that's basically, to me, that's an emblem of where we have become, what we have become as a country. We use the smartphone as an addictive platform to enable one of the worst vices that we've always recognized in American history. And my solution is simple as, okay, it's not fair that Nevada had sports gambling. Let's just make it in person. We have to introduce friction into the system. We do that for alcohol. We do that for cigarettes. By the way, cigarette companies are not allowed to sponsor and spend billions of dollars in advertising at the Super Bowl and pair up with professional sports betting leagues. I've spoken with professional athletes, NFL athletes, who told me they have faced harassment from people who lost bets because of them. They'll be like, hey, the kicker, you idiot, you didn't make that. And I had $1,000, on something. It's ruining the game. The gambling companies and the leagues are coming together. Tens of millions of Americans are borderline addicted right now. Hundreds of millions are actually making bets. And all of this is just like a sleeping social revolution in the country where parlay betting and the lingo that used to be known to, the most degenerate guy who lives in Vegas is now common parlance, in American culture. And people call you nanny state or any of that. I just said I don't even oppose necessarily the ability to sports gamble. I just think we should treat it like any other vice and make it so that you have to gamble
why
in
not
person.
just say it's disgusting?
I think it is disgusting.
And it's predatory. Yeah. And by the way, they're preying, as the crypto people do, on the frustration and sadness of young men who know they're never going to be able to afford a wife, kids, and a house.
Exactly.
And that's the sad part. And it is, there is a crisis happening. I mean, it's been talked about. I'm not the only guy that's going to break this news, but for young men. And I don't know how you solve it. You definitely don't solve it by continuing to allow these things. And I think probably the big three is going to be gambling, porn, and social media to some degree, although it's wrapped up in the porn and the gambling. But I don't know how you fix it. I mean, Saagar's thing is, well, you can't make it totally illegal, and I agree. I don't think you should make it totally illegal. But then what do? You just make it an only in-person thing? Does that solve the problem? But then you already have all these people that have been introduced to it and they're hooked on it. But I don't know. Then you're getting into treatment and things. I just don't know. But I agree. The access that you get with these things when it's online, when it's on your phone, and you can link it up to your bank account, and you can make these transactions, and they gamify it so that it keeps you wanting to play more, and they keep sending you these offers, and they have smart AI technology that it knows your behaviors, and it knows when you're going to bet and what you're going to bet and which game or which kind of bet is going to, trigger you to make you want to place that bet. They gather so much data on you when you are gambling, and it's really scary. So it's exploitative, and I agree to an extent. There has to be something done about it. Because I think it's getting out of hand, and I think it's has a larger potential for abuse. And I should say, one of the things that really disturbs me about this is the normalization that you get, especially from the big leagues. And the NFL is literally sponsored by DraftKings or FanDuel every single year, and you have the banners everywhere, and they do these ESPN full ESPN shows where they're giving you the picks and the picks for the game and all these things. It's very public and publicized. I have a feeling that they're going to regret that at some point in the future once they realize the damage that this has done for a lot of people, a lot of individuals. I don't necessarily like the normalization of it in that way. I think that should be curtailed. Again, I don't know how you do it when there's just so much money in it, but it's an excessive, it's a feedback loop where of course it's going to cause that kind of a situation when you have bored young men at home, and they're watching sports and they have their phone there, and the app is so easy to download, and then you can just funnel money in, and it just becomes such an easy dopamine hit feedback loop that that's why it's so powerful and it generates so much money. And so how do you separate that from a cash business, from a business that is just built to generate attention and ads and excitement, and all that seems to make a lot of sense. But like I said, I think they're going to regret the normalization of it someday. So let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think? What is the potential solution to this? Do you agree with Saagar? Do you think it should go further? Do you think they shouldn't touch it at all? Do you think there's no problem with it? So let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Like, comment, and subscribe. And there you go.